Good morning and welcome to Copenhagen and this presentation titled The Golden Egg, the Business of Making Motherhood Through Egg Donation. My name is Charlotte Kohliger and I'm sorry not to be able to join you in Orlando, but I'm quite pleased to be able to participate in the panel in this way. What I'll be doing this morning is I'll talk about feminist intersectionality, and I want to briefly outline the issues of privilege concerned with transnational egg donation, and then I'll look at my empirical data that stems from marketing material of a Spanish fertility clinic that is frequently used by Danish travelers to Spain for egg donation. And I'll also look at 3 interviews that I've conducted with Danish women that have already been in Spain for treatment. But first of all, let me say a few words about privilege. And clearly, when we're looking at the issue of transnational egg donation, the issue of economic privilege is quite prevalent. For instance, some Danish women can afford to travel to Spain. Others feel a need to travel, but yet can only afford to travel to Eastern Europe, whereas egg donation and treatments for assisted reproduction is cheaper, and yet others cannot afford to travel at all. Similarly, Spanish women, some may be able to afford treatment in their own countries, while others cannot. So economic privilege is one of the key increments to fertility travel and to assisted reproduction as we look at it on a more transnational scale. Yet other forms of privilege are important as well. For instance, the issue of sexuality, the fact that some lesbian women can get treatment in some countries while others cannot, and the fact that single women are permitted treatment in some countries and yet not in others. And moreover, the issue of age, that is, in the Danish context, for instance, women over 46 years of age have to go elsewhere as it's illegal to receive treatment at that age in Denmark. Thus, we might say the privilege when it comes to transnational traveling for assisted reproduction is related to, of course, class, economics, but also sexuality, marital status, age, are key ingredients of how we must look at reproductive privilege. What I'll do now is I'll look very briefly at the Spanish context and situate why I think looking at Spain is particularly interesting. Then we'll look at the marketing material of a Spanish clinic, EVI, which is one of the more prominent clinics in Spain. And we'll end up by looking at briefly at the interviews I've conducted with Danish women that have gone to Spain. But in situating Spain, I must say that in the European context, Spain has emerged as a hotspot, in particular for egg donation. It has emerged as a hotspot because of a wide range of clinics that are located in different parts of Spain. Also, however, because the Spanish clinics have managed to connect to a narrative of altruism as being innately Spanish, thus an idea that Spanish young women donate their eggs not for money, but rather because of an altruist incentive. Unlike perhaps the ways in which that Danish women might worry about Eastern European clinics or even Greek clinics, given the current economic issues in Greece. In the case of Spain, also, the Spanish clinics have been very successful in incorporating their marketing material into all kinds of facets of European travelers, such as in the in-flight magazine of the airline Norwegian that you will, as a northerner, encounter when you fly from Northern Europe to, for instance, Southern Europe. In the case of EVI, again, treatments are offered throughout Spain and throughout various clinics on the Mediterranean coast. EVI has collaborations with the World Egg Bank, collaborations with Danish clinics. EVI also has clinics throughout South America. Thus, we might say it's a very good example of this sort of transnational market in fertility. Spain thus derives its attractiveness as a location in part because of the availability and access of treatment, but also because of the idea of a comfortable climate, various tourist attractions, friendly locals, as well as the existing knowledge and experiences that Northern Europeans have had already in traveling to Spain. In looking at the website of the EV Clinic, it's clear that here we're dealing with a modern urban facility with attractive donors. The imagined donor at the EV Clinic is not only young, she's also urban, she's not particularly Spanish looking, which perhaps is communicating sort of a certain global aesthetics that the intended parents, frequently coming from Germany, the UK, and Northern Europe, can find attractive. Thus, in some ways, difference is both minimized between the potential donor and the potential recipient, yet also in some ways exoticized through this idea of a particularly Spanish, friendly, outgoing type of culture. When we look at the construction of the egg donor in particular, we see here construction of the altruistic egg donor who wants to help other women, thus solidarity in women helping women. In the marketing material, it's clear that what's constructed is the idea of a Spanish younger woman who wants to help older, frequently older, other European women achieve their quote-unquote natural desire for motherhood. The donors are thus young, they're healthy, but they're also sensitive to other women's needs, and I see this as a way of performing a particular gendered, femininized, perhaps even heterosexed notion of femininity. As far as appearance is concerned, the donor's appearance is groomed, it's constructed as desirable, and thus donation is stratified not only in terms of sexuality, this assumed heterosexed feminine body, but also in terms of appearance and class in many ways in regards to education. Clearly, the marketing material is drawing upon these dreamscapes of future parenting, but not only as far as the donor is concerned, also as far as the experience of going to Spain is concerned. Here I see a transformative sort of potential that not only will you go through this treatment, but it's also a more pleasurable kind of treatment that's taking place. IVF Spain, which is a brokerage company that deals with the tourists coming into Spain, is a particularly good example of that, I think. On the website, we are met with classical Spanish guitar music, palm trees, photos of collaborating clinics, pristine beaches along Alicante, 3D fetal images, and an already existing blonde, blue-eyed baby that's made into a puzzle missing only one piece, which is the egg that is carefully positioned by the fertility doctor into the puzzle. The brokerage company introduces, moreover, the idea of northern comforts and cultural values to the warm, friendly climate of southern Europe. For instance, involving British drivers, English-speaking and British drivers that will pick the patient up and drive her or them to the fertility appointments, a free phone, emphasizing the idea of punctuality as being important in achieving fertility and in going to these treatments. Thus, in many ways, the foreignness of traveling is being negotiated in the material in many ways to constrain the warm climate, the pleasant music as being the more exotic elements, with these kinds of Western, Northern cultural values of punctuality and keeping with schedules. I also said I wanted to look very briefly at the interviews with Danish women, and here I want to point out how the interviewees stress that traveling is not a tourist experience, but rather is a form of forced travel. In contrast, in many ways, to the marketing material where the transformative, and pleasurable experiences are at the center stage, the interviews with Danish women who travel to or who have traveled to Spain for egg donation reveal a quite different picture in which the traveler is not a privileged tourist, but rather an exiled and forced hero, forced in a sense of forced going abroad. For instance, we see this in the interview with Rita, who started her traveling to Spain at the age of 46 and continued until the age of 51 when she succeeded in becoming pregnant with both sperm and egg donation. She argues that the Danish legislation privileges youthfulness in the sense that Rita was too old to become a mother. In her narrative, she was not a tourist, but rather a reproductive refugee who had to leave the country to achieve the pregnancy that she so desired and communicate as being rightfully hers. In that sense, the trauma of the infertility treatment, the childlessness in the Danish law takes center stage. In conclusion, let me make two concluding remarks. Firstly, a feminist intersectional perspective can help us highlight how privilege is present both in the rhetorical construction of IVF holidays as well as the fertility travelers' own accounts. In the clinical discourses, privilege is associated with youthfulness, with fair skin, with attractiveness, and with seemingly happy donors. In the construction of fertility travel as a reproductive holiday, this is, however, in conflict with the travelers' own accounts, in which legal barriers as well as unsuccessful treatments and in many ways the absence of privilege are being mentioned. Meanwhile, however, the travelers position egg donation as being quote-unquote a natural way of achieving motherhood, in as much as they see the egg donors as unattached to their eggs and with no intent to procreate. Thus, clearly, traveling for egg donation produces debate. It's positioned in a complex relationship with notions of reproductive rights, autonomy, and freedom, very Western notions, while critically also it must be seen in light of reproductive privilege and the desire for quote-unquote own children. Thank you very much.